Vania Soto is the owner of Monarca Art Space in Kansas City's West Bottoms. She is an incredible artist herself, hailing from Chihuahua, Mexico. This Mexicana grew up in Tennessee and through our good fortune calls Kansas City home. Vania shares her incredible entrepreneurial journey, her passion for culture in her art, and gives us a little country grammar. I hope y'all ready for this. And explains how it is her time to now give back to the art community. This is Enterrupt KC. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome back to Enterrupt KC, the podcast dedicated to people, places, and things right here in Kansas City. I'm your man, D-Rod. This is JL. We got Nick behind the scenes, man, making the magic happen. What's going on, JL, man?
Man, it's a beautiful week. We're down here in the West Bottoms, though.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know. I feel like, man, the weather is tornado weather.
Mm-hmm. Well, they keep on saying that shit, right? But I mean, it felt pretty good today. The sky was blue.
I don't know. I'm waiting for a house to drop on the Wicked Witch.
There's something we about to drop.
I'm in Kansas, so
hey, man, there's something about to drop. Pretty close to where we're at, man. We might be able to talk about that for a little bit. Yeah.
We might get to that, but we got a great guest this evening.
Fantastic guest, man.
You know, one of the things I'm proud of, man, is how the artist community, man.
Yeah.
I mean, our art community in Kansas City.
Oh man,
is incredible, and they are showing us a lot of love, man.
Man, they're we're getting so much feedback, positive feedback, a lot of messages.
Shout out to all you artists, man, following us on socials, hitting us up with some messages, and asking us, hey, man, I love to be on your podcast, this and that, and we will get to you.
We got you, man. Promise that.
Yes, but sir. Tonight, we have an incredible guest.
Incredible artist.
I think we should interrupt our guest this evening. What about that?
I believe we should.
And by interrupt, we mean introduce our guest.
Yes.
None other than the queen herself, Mrs. Vania Soto.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
How you doing? How's things going?
Good. Doing good. Busiest life for sure I've ever lived.
I mean, what's life if it ain't busy?
I know
it's
that's
boring.
Right.
the other B word,
that's right? Yeah, I can never sit still.
If it wasn't, then you'll be, complaining about that, right?
Exactly.
Or, I mean, it's one back. One thing scratches your back, the other one, right?
But tell Kansas City, Vania, where are we right now?
We are in Monarca Art Space, Mas KC for short. Mm-hmm. Where this is a gallery. This is a space for everybody to belong. My doors are always open to anyone that wants to get inspired. Yeah. I think art moves people. Art is like the unconditional love and the language that is universal. So I choose art to communicate with everybody in the community.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Love it. What is the address here?
It is 1225 Union Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri. In the West Bottoms. We're right next door to the Ship.
Yeah.
So you can't miss us.
The Ship restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Restaurant and bar.
And bar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's what's up. Yeah. Shout out to the Ship.
Shout out to my neighbors.
So are you kind of like a platinum VIP there?
Oh man,
you have a side door access.
Yeah. Actually, we do.
Yeah,
in the back door, they have a back entrance.
Yeah.
It's like maybe 12 steps
Yeah.
from my back door to their back door.
Yeah.
I'm sure they see me and they're like, man, this girl doesn't own a kitchen. She's never cooked in her life because we eat there so much.
They got some, man, shout out to the Ship, man. I went down there, I think one time last year, man. And we ate down there. It was pretty damn impressive.
It was
cool.
good.
It was
hopefully they'll get on episode one day and we can talk all about that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Shout out.
Yes.
So Vania, one of the things that we try to do with our audience is deliver the story, right?
Oh,
and your story, and just doing some research on you. One thing we like to tell people is we kind of have to stalk our guests a little bit, on social media or online, and just try to, find out some information about them so we kind of know, a little bit more about you. But also, that's what this podcast is for, right?
Right.
So for those that don't know, Vania, where are you from?
Oh my gosh. So I was born in Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua. Juaritos. Yes, represent.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So my parents brought me here when I was like 8 years old. And we lived in South Carolina, then North Carolina, then finally we stayed in Tennessee. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in East Tennessee, small town. Like if you're from there, like it's rare, but usually people go there because of the companies that are there that are big. So people travel to work in those companies and like power plants and like chemical plants and different things like that.
Let me ask you a question about that. Hey, Kansas City. This is your chance to enter the raffle for Vania Soto's Frida Kahlo print and Mas KC hat. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment on the video, and answer the question, how many paintings did Vania sell when she sold her paintings for the first time to the business owner? Make sure you share the episode and tag Enterrupt KC on either Facebook or Instagram. This is Enterrupt KC. Keep watching. So what is like one of the largest industries or businesses down there?
Eastman Chemicals, for sure. Eastman Chemicals is a chemically engineered company that invented plastics that are non-recyclable, so like medical plants, medical plastics, things like that. But I mean, they do, I'm like shortening it all to one thing. They do thousands of things.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so people from all over the world come to work for Eastman Chemicals.
In that small town.
In the small town, Eastman. So it's called Kingsport, Tennessee. So that's where I'm from, or that's where I grew up.
Kingsport, Tennessee.
Kingsport, Tennessee. So it's the Tri-Cities. It's like Bristol, like where NASA was from, like Bristol Motor Speedways is where NASCAR is where it's from. And
that's a big sport down there, I'm
huge.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that's the thing. So that kind of paints a picture of like the kind of town, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I didn't really have a choice, right? Your parents just kind of moved there for a job. And so I was kind of robbed in like the Hispanic community and everything. We were the only ones. Yeah, we were for a while. Wow. I mean, more Hispanic people started coming in just because of the plant. And they were like, bringing other people from all over the world. But for a while, like it was just my family. And it was crazy. It was really crazy because first of all, it's a shock to like be taken out of your country, but you don't really think like that when you're a kid. Yeah. You're not thinking country. You're just thinking like your family. That is your life. Your environment. Right. So it's just like all your cousins and your aunts and your grandparents and all of that. And so we were a super tight-knit family. Like, we would get together every weekend, just like normal, Yeah. And so we were the first family out of my family to come to the U.S.
Okay.
So
how old were you when that happened?
8.
8 years old, okay.
I was 8. And, it was shocking, right? And I didn't know the language, and it was so crazy.
Wow.
And I went to this environment where I was thinking, oh my gosh, like USA, I'm thinking like Disney. I'm thinking like blonde people.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse, you think about all that stuff.
Right. Yes. I'm thinking like blonde people, like blue eyes. I was like, okay, like I've never seen that before, really. Yeah. And I'm from Juarez. Like El Paso is the US, which is like, I'm a border baby, which is like right across, right? But never really saw like that kind of real American people, is what we would call it.
Yeah.
And so, but I went to South Carolina and North Carolina, where in the small counties where it was just black people. And I was like, okay, so like in my mind, I'm 8 years old, thinking, I'm like, where's the widows? Like, where's you know what I mean?
This is not what they said America was.
Wait a minute. But all of my teachers eventually became all white, present. What is it called? Because someone corrected me earlier. Now that I'm open for business to the public, people like start, from all walks of life, start telling me how they want to be identified.
Oh, sure.
And one person told me, I'm not white, I'm white presenting.
Oh. White presenting.
So, yes, white presenting. So that like you are white, but you're not like a white person, you're white presenting. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm still learning. I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to be like correct. I don't really know because that's not my life. So
are you the only child, Vania?
I'm not.
Okay.
We're all 6 years apart. I have an older brother and a younger sister.
Okay.
So
6 years apart?
We're all 6 years
Each way?
apart. Yes, each way.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my biological dad had 5 girls. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I am just like in the middle that I didn't grow up with them, with
Right.
my dad's family. So, but yeah. And so it was a shock.
Did you get into NASCAR when you were
I
coming?
did not.
I had
I
to
did
ask,
not,
man.
but
I had to ask.
But funny thing is that in Kingsport, like they'll take you down to try. You can practice driving.
Yeah, on a dirt road.
On the
track,
actual
on the
track.
track.
Yeah, which is cool. Which is supposed to be
Yeah.
like at the
Well,
time
that's
you
a
don't
fun
know.
thing to do in that town.
Yeah.
right? You know?
At the time, you don't know that that's a really big deal because
Yeah.
that's like
Right.
NASCAR,
Well, you
right?
can't knock it. I mean, I'm not trying to knock it by
Yeah.
no way, shape, or form. And I got friends and I know buddies who like NASCAR.
Yeah.
You know.
So I knew that wasn't, even though that was like what was happening around me, like I never identified as anything like in my environment. You know, I was always
Yeah.
like holding on to my roots for dear life. Like, okay, no, I'm Mexican. Like, this is where I come from. I'm not from here. Like, we're implants. Like, we're just like surviving, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I always made that very present in my life to the day. You know.
Nice.
But then my godfather, was in Juarez and moved to Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
So he moved to Argentine.
Yeah.
He lived right behind Emerson Park, Emerson Elementary.
Yep.
Yeah.
Know where that
And
is.
so like that's where my like Kansas City like family is from. And
Okay.
so when I graduated, my godfather was like, hey, and my parents were like also asking me like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to Kansas City? And I'm like, absolutely. So I would always come to Kansas City like in the summertime.
Was it because like the Chiefs and the Royals, or no? I'm just joking.
Of course. It was totally sports related. No, but it is community reasons,
Yeah.
like, the community, the raza. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. So we would come all the time. We would like travel, like back in the day, you just get in a car and
Got in a
like
station
drive
wagon.
for hours.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we didn't take a plane or anything like that.
Right.
And so we would come to Kansas City all the time. We would
Right.
come in the summertime. We'd come like even Christmas, New Year's, whenever we could. And so, like, I saw what it was like, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. This is like Mexico, really,
Yeah.
Like people in the grocery store spoke
I see
Spanish.
people like me that look like me.
Yeah. And I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. Like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is where I want to live. So when my parents gave me the option to do that, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that.
You said that
Definitely.
was your godfather?
My godfather.
Is he still around?
He's in El Paso now,
Okay.
but all of his family's here still. Like his kids are here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
What
I have
year was
cousins
that,
here.
Vanya? You came here.
I mean, fuck, I don't want to give up my age.
I'm just curious. I mean, I don't think you will.
Like 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So now I can say like, this is my like where I really am from.
This is your home.
You know
This is
what I
what you
mean?
call
This is
home now, right?
Absolutely my home, yeah. So even though before I moved here, we would travel here and I would feel at home. I would feel like this is where I belong,
That's
like
what's
this is
up.
where my family, wherever your family is where where really home is.
Yeah.
So I mean, my godfather and I are really close.
Nice.
It's my mom's only brother. And so we were born on the same day. Like he baptized me, did all of that. We were
Yeah.
really close. And
Yeah.
so I got to live with him and his family. And yeah, that kind of like opened the doors to my Latina
yeah. Chingona,
identity.
Chingona.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So somewhere in there between, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
Mexico and Kansas City,
Yeah,
art became a part of your life.
absolutely.
And can you talk about those early moments where you're like, I really like to draw, or
Yeah.
anything like that?
Was there
Absolutely.
somebody who inspired you to do that?
Oh man, I mean, really, it was a communication thing for me.
Right.
When you don't know how to speak the language, like you learn how to communicate in crazy ways, and that's why I keep saying like, art, it's a universal language,
Yeah.
you know? And so,
sure.
but also like in recess and things like that, I wasn't like super social because I was scared to say like the
Right.
wrong thing. I was still practicing my English. I was watching like Barney and Friends, which really
Yeah.
doesn't teach you a lot too much, but like you
I
hear
teach you to
the
sing
language.
them songs.
Yeah, like what am I gonna sing a song to a friend and then like everybody's like, I don't know. And so like I didn't want to chance it, so I was
Right.
just by myself a lot, like just sketching and drawing. And I think a lot of kids are when they're very introverted and they're not very like sure of themselves and who they are. They like to express themselves through drawing and
Absolutely,
sketching and
yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I took that very literal for me, like my entire life. Even though I eventually learned the language and was able to communicate, because kids are like, well, if you teach them a language, they'll get it fast.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
right. Yeah.
they'll start communicating really fast. So that's what happened with me. And so, yeah, I took art with me wherever I went. I was always an artist in
Do
my
you have any of
eyes.
those early pieces that you got? You still got them?
I wish. We moved so much that like I don't really have a lot of stuff. And back in the day, you don't really like photograph a lot of like document in that way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I started really painting. I always tell this story of how I started selling paintings and my entrepreneurship, which I tell this story all the time. So it feels like a broken record at this point.
Well, let's see.
So
Yeah,
if
tell
you
me.
heard it, if you heard any other podcast I've ever done, I always like tell the same story.
I've
I'm
never
like,
heard you on a podcast but this
and
one.
I haven't
I'm just
either.
gonna say.
Yeah.
I've never
This
heard
is the only
you.
one that matters.
I've
No, I'm
never,
just
but
kidding.
before you get to that
Yeah.
though, one of the things I have noticed about your art is
Mm-hmm.
the culture that's intertwined in every single. I'm looking at these 3 paintings behind you, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen your art even in when we first met many
Yes.
years ago. Culture has always been a part of your art. It looks like
Definitely.
I guess, can you talk about why that was always important to you? I know you said, it helps you kind of express your feelings and emotions because you didn't know the language, right? But is it just stronger and stronger as time goes on? Like, you know what? I'm deep into this culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even too, like, has it always been that way with the culture? Art?
Definitely. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
I think I just since I'm a border baby and we were like from the city, I didn't get to go to like Mexico City. Excuse me. I didn't get to go to like other places where it's like the Aztecs and like the
Yeah.
pyramids or any of that.
Yeah.
We were on the border, so it was like very Americanized while it was still Mexico. So and I was 8, so you don't really get to know geography that well, really, to know where a lot of places are. So I learned all of that in my adulthood, well, really coming into my
Yeah.
adulthood, really through classes in the U.S. So
Yeah.
learning those things, learning in the same pace with everybody else.
Yeah.
And so you really have to educate yourself.
Yeah.
If you really want to know where you're from, and it's just going to the library back in the day, before internet was a thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
I think
we're
that's-
dating ourselves. We're like, yeah, we know.
For
We
sure.
know what
Library
you're talking
card,
about, Vanya.
yeah.
We know.
I think that's kind of
Yeah.
common though, right? I think that's kind
Right.
of common though
I think.
with people in the culture and trying to. I mean, as a youth, you don't get it so much. It takes
Yeah.
time to kind of get into, and once you get a little bit older, to even for myself, right? I know that I got more real into it as I became an older man. When I was a young kid, I wasn't really thinking about it. I knew, we know we're Mexicans, we know we have doing what we do, but
Absolutely.
starting to have that pride and expressing it more,
And the reason why I ask those questions, Vanya,
Yeah.
is because I grew up here in Kansas City, but I will tell you, part of my upbringing was not like culture.
Right.
My parents weren't like, you're Mexican, you
Exactly.
got to rock the flag, and this is a part of who you are. And
Yeah.
they just didn't raise me like that, But I see artists and I see
Yeah.
other people, my friends, that was just always a part of who they were, and they could kind of describe why that was important to them,
Right.
because they have family in Mexico, or because they're from the border or whatever,
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
But as I've aged, it's become more and more important to me.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, especially when they you kind of get ripped out of that environment. So you don't know if you were still living in Mexico, if you were repping the same way. You don't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like kids like me that were just brought over here, you just start to have an identity crisis, right? Because you're Americanized, but you're not from the U.S., but you are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just so who am I really? So you are fighting with yourself to identify. Basically,
I always think of the movie Selena, where the dad is
man, there's some truth
not
to
enough for the
that.
American.
You gotta be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the
Exactly.
Americans.
Yes.
And I'm like, damn, he's right.
Definitely, but she sung stuff in Spanish.
Yeah. And she learned the language too.
Right, she learned the language.
That movie was dope when he said that, because I was like, no shit.
Triggered.
I think
Triggered.
every
Yeah,
Mexican American was
for sure. That's how I felt when I moved here. That's how I felt when I moved here, because when I moved here, I had a country ass accent. I didn't know. I'm not aware
You're
that.
oh, this is how I'm supposed to speak English.
Yeah, I thought exactly,
Hey,
because
partner,
I'm
how you
coming
doing?
to the U.S., right?
What's up, y'all?
Right, because I'm told okay, we're going to take you to the United States, learning English. I learned it with the accent, not knowing the difference.
From where you were in that town, right?
Right. So I would come to Kansas City, and I thought everybody in Kansas City had an accent. And I'm like, they talk kind of funny.
You know what's crazy? I went to L.A., some years ago, man, and they was telling me, man, you talk so country. No, they were saying how much I talk country.
People think in
Kansas
City.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't talk about country. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a country accent. I'm telling people I grew up in East Tennessee. People are like, oh, the right away they're like, oh, so you're kind of white. You're kind of whitewashed and everything. And I'm like, no, because when I'm there, I'm thinking, no, I'm
Spanish,
Mexican. Right. And I'm like, no, Spanish is my first language. I had to learn English, But people are so quick to put you in a box. They're like, oh, well, you grew up in Tennessee, so you're more you grew up in that kind of environment. But really, wherever I was at, it was 50% black, 50% white, pretty equally.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so,
and not a lot of Mexicanos, I'm assuming.
Obviously, yeah. And so, for real, I grew up with mostly all of my friends were mostly black, And so when I come here and they're like, well, you grew up in East Tennessee and you have this country accent, automatically they were putting me in a box, and I'm not even.
Yeah.
I can't.
I have to say though, Vania, you don't have an accent at all.
I don't anymore.
No.
I mean, you don't even have an accent as a first language Spanish speaker.
Really?
You don't. I don't hear it at all. I mean, I've been around a lot of Spanish speakers first language, and they kind of keep their accents,
But you have to remember too, though, I was so young, I was
but I mean, Tennessee took a toll on you.
Oh,
they beat it out of you.
For sure. I was like, oh my gosh. I remember the first few times that I would come to Kansas City. I have a cousin that was like, you have a really thick accent. And I'm like, I don't know how to not,
Give me
you still got it? Can you bring it out?
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's do
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
This is Vania Soto. I'm interrupting KC with
After we take a shot.
Hey, how about we just do that right now?
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do it.
Salute to that, man. Salute.
Salute to that.
Salute.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hear it. We got to hear the accent.
We gotta hear it, man. We gotta hear that
gosh.
Tennessee.
I know how to turn it on.
Come on.
Tennessee.
But my boyfriend used to always tell me anytime that I'm starting to drink, and my country accent comes out. And
I love it, man. I love it.
I can't believe I just did that on record.
We might have to just go ahead. We might have to just finish this episode with you talking like that, man.
No, don't make me regret it. Do not make me regret it.
You're gonna have to. Hey, look. After every salute, man, you're gonna have to.
We're gonna need a little bit more.
Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, guys. This is not who I am.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, but seriously, people would tell me hey, once you start drinking, I want you to know that sometimes you sound pretty country, and I was like, oh shit. So now that I'm drinking, I'm like, okay.
And you're like, well,
I always check myself, how did that sound? I don't know, I'm just it's not it's an insecurity, definitely, because I want to belong so much to my Hispanic community. I don't ever want to come out and that kind of like where people used to do that to me when I like first moved here. You know what I mean? So you feel like, oh shit. First of all, I had to learn English. Second of all, I didn't know I was learning it wrong, like with an accent. You know what I'm saying?
Wrong. You just learned it
in a different way. Yeah.
Hey, it could have been worse. You could have been in Minnesota, you know, talking
that's
to, you know, that's
Boston.
Yeah, Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You know that actress Jamie Presley, right?
Yeah.
Come on, man. She had a beautiful accent.
Yeah.
So you're back to your art. I mean,
back to my art, please.
You know, when did like the first somebody recognize you and said, "Man, Vania,
okay,
you
so
have
here
some
goes my
skill.
story. Yeah, definitely. I was like 12, 13 years old, and there was only one Mexican restaurant. There was an actual Mexican restaurant where I lived in Kingsport, Tennessee.
Hey, there's always a Mexican.
Right? There's always one at least. We are in the craziest towns, like just one little hole in the wall. Like you're like, oh shit.
It'll be like Los Hombres or something.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, definitely.
They got one guy cooking.
Yeah. So this restaurant's called La Carreta, and now there's like 3 of them. I can't believe that's crazy. But anyways, the original owner, we used to go see every Sunday. We'd have like menudo or something with him because that was like our thing, right? That was like our only place to like belong, really. And so my parents and him were really good friends. He was like an American, Mexican American, like 2 generations out Mexican.
Yeah.
And so he would have all of these pictures on the wall, like with the cactus and the drunk Mexican and the big sombrero and the cactus and the donkeys and all of this. And I would always look at that like, I don't remember Mexico being like that. And we're from the desert. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, like, this is not right. I don't know why I felt like...
offended.
Yeah, I felt like other people, we're the only Mexicans. Like, I feel like all my other friends are going to go over there and think that my dad has a sombrero like that and, like, is drunk and that's in the desert and that's what kind of Mexican he is, you know?
Yeah.
And so... one time I just told my mom, I was like, of course I asked permission because I know better. Because, you know, kids don't really talk to adults like that, you know? And so I asked my mom, hey, I feel some kind of way about these like pictures. I kind of want to say something. And she was like, Mika, if you feel a certain way, you always speak up. If you feel like something's not safe or something's against you, you speak up. That's the only way you're going to get change. Even if like nothing happens out of it, you at least gave your respect, you respected yourself by saying something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And believing in yourself. And I was like, okay, here I go. I was like, shit, I got permission.
You put your hair in a ponytail.
I got permission. I was like, let's go. Right? Yeah. I was like, okay, here we go.
Put your hair up.
I'm like, wait,
take your earrings off.
Yes. I'm like thinking, do I do it before I eat? Do I do it after? I'm like, no, I'm gonna chill. I'm after I eat. After I eat, I'm gonna say something. You know? Yeah. And like he was coming closer. I'm like, here we go. I'm like red in the face. I'm all hot. I'm like. My face was like,
I got
cracky.
something to tell you right now.
I got something to say. So no, I just told him, I was like, hey, I just really I've always wanted to tell you that the images you have like in the restaurant, like are not very good representations of us. And I said us, like meaning him too. And he's like, oh, he was just kind of like laughing at me. It's like, well, when you own a business, you know how like older people talk to kids and stuff. It's like when you own a business, you just go to Restaurant Depot. That's where all the restaurants get all of their equipment from. And if you own a Mexican restaurant, like this is what you get to decorate your place. Like there's no other place where you would get this kind of art to like put it up, especially in East Tennessee, right?
Sure.
And I was like, okay, I was understanding of that. And I was like, I get it. You have no other choice. But then he gave me the outing. He asked me for the like first time I felt like I had a voice when he asked me, well, what do you think? Like, what should I do? Like, what would be better? And I was like, oh, it just so happens that I'm an artist.
She flung her hair. It just so happens.
It just so happens that I'm an artist, and I could probably come up with something, you know, in my head. I was not going into that conversation with that resolution.
Yeah.
I just spoke up with something that I couldn't like resonate with that was supposed to be about me, really.
Right.
You know, and so I was like, yeah, I did not say it with that kind of confidence. I just said it like all nervous and everything, and like, you know, being so young and like a teenager, like barely coming into like yourself, you know, and a girl, and it's just like, oh, you're talking to this guy,
Right.
And I was just like, it just so happens that I'm an artist and I do paintings and drawings, and I think I can come up with some like really good ideas that would be like better to replace the images that you have in your restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, okay, that's cool. He was like, how about this? How about next time you come? He was looking at my parents.
Yeah.
Not anymore to me.
Right.
He was like, next time you come into the restaurant, bring some of your paintings to see if we can like replace them, the images we have up, so that. And I was like, oh shit, and my mind is blown, right? So I kept it cool though.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I think I can do that. And I was like looking at my dad, like, I need your help, like, doing this
All right,
by
Dad.
myself.
I need some more material.
Exactly, yes. And so he leaves, right? We finish, we like pay our bill, and I was like, Dad, I don't have any materials, so I think I'm gonna need a loan. So because my dad was very much like that, like, no, you can't get what you want at the store, like you have to work for it, and you have to do this. And so I just talked to him like as a business proposal. And I was like, Dad, I'm gonna need a loan because I need to buy materials, and I need to go to the library to like research and all that.
Get
so I'm gonna need a
pictures,
ride. Right. I'm gonna need a ride. Like nothing is so close to us like that, you know? And he's like, okay, I got you. But if you don't sell those paintings, you're going to have to get a job or something to pay me back.
Right.
And I was like, oh, no, none of that. And like, I'm going to sell these paintings. Like, I know I got it in the bag, you know? And so I did not know I had that. I just said that because, you know, business talk.
Yeah, you're in it.
Entrepreneur was born for sure.
Yeah.
And so like I went to the library. I like looked up all of these books. I actually found a lot of the material I was like looking for that I didn't know that I was looking for. I found that information through like the encyclopedias from like back in the day, like big old books and stuff.
No,
like
but
I
don't
just
nobody
turned to
know
the
what
Mexico
encyclopedias
chapter.
are
I know,
anymore, right?
The little tabs.
Yeah.
And so like I turned the tab to like Mexico and like the revolution and all that. I had no idea
Oh man.
at this point. So not only did I like stand up for myself at this point, but now I'm learning about my own culture. And an entrepreneur was born because I already made a deal, not with the guy, but with my dad. So that was my first business deal.
Right.
Nice.
And so I went into the encyclopedia. I learned about all of this. I'm like reading all the time. I'm like taking like Xerox pictures of all these books and stuff, finding images. And that's when I discovered like Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera and like all of these other amazing artists, you know?
Yeah.
I learned all of that and I was like, oh my gosh, like that sparked something in me that I'm like, this is the kind of artist I am.
Right.
Even though I'm still learning about everything, as I'm reading, I'm like, yes, I'm taking it all in. None of that was taught to me. I found that. You know what I mean? I found that in this section, the small, tiny section that I could find in the library in East Tennessee.
Yeah.
You know, and so when the internet came out to be like, obviously I like progressed and more stuff. But at the time, I was like, this is enough material for me to come up with pieces that are original to me, but telling our story.
Right.
So overall, I came up with 6 pieces.
Okay.
6 paintings. Some were watercolor, some were acrylic, and I think I had one kind of sketch with like different things on the background.
Yeah.
And so I wrote, like a nerd, right? So like I wrote like an essay, a small essay of like each painting to tell him why I even
what
did
that
them.
picture's
like,
about or something.
Yeah, school like teaches you to do that, right? Or you do like a report, and so you like kind of tell the story and what it is or whatever. Like this guy doesn't know his story, right? But I'm thinking like I need to like have a good case, you know, to like present
Sell
to
it.
him.
You're selling it.
This is a grown man, like. I'm a little girl, and I'm like thinking, no, like
He's going to say no.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So you know, like when you like wrap up and you're like talking to your parents, you're like, no, you got to convince them, and this is why. Like you're ready in your head. Yeah. So this is how it was, and so I wrote in the back of all of the paintings. I like put it in the back of the paintings, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. And so, I told my parents to not go back on the Sunday because I wasn't ready. And he told me next time you come to bring in your paintings. And I'm like, I'm not ready yet.
Right.
So my family
You
did
guys
not
can't
eat
eat.
out.
You can't eat. You can't eat
Exactly.
today.
I'm like, no, I'm not ready. Like, please respect, you know?
I'm like, but there's only one restaurant. You know?
That's maneuver on Sunday, Mija. We got maneuver on Sunday.
What are you doing?
Exactly. And I'm like, no. And so finally, I was done with all of my paintings, and he told me, hey, whenever you're ready, bring the paintings down to me, right? And I was like, okay, cool. And so I told my dad, hey, Dad, I need a ride to the restaurant, and I need you to help me with all these paintings to put up in the car and all that. And he's like, okay, Mika, I got you.
Yeah.
And so when we were getting there, and I was like, no, park in the back. Park in the back. No, park in the front because we got business. Like, we can't bring in the stuff through the front. Like, people are going to be like, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so I went in through the back, and all the dishwashers and everything are like towards the wall. So I told them all to get out of the way so I could put my paintings down.
No, you did.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I told them, I got a meeting with the owner. Oh, you're here? Like no, get out of my way.
Again, so how old were you at this
13.
time? 13? Man.
And I knew myself. Like, I was just like, business.
So then what happened?
Business.
He came out and it was all good?
Yeah. And so, like, the dishwasher, one of the dishwasher washing persons went in to tell him in the restaurant, like, hey, laughing the whole time, like giggling at me because I was so serious, you know. And I was like 5 foot, maybe skinny, like real skinny girl.
Yeah.
And so he's like, there's this little girl here saying that she's got a meeting with you. And he was like, what? He was so confused, and I can hear him. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, da-da-da. And so he came in, and I had all my paintings out, you know, and the other ones were just like this, like crossed arm, like, what is she doing? They're like, can you get her to move? Like, we're trying to work here, you know? And he was like, oh, it's okay, guys. I told her to come. Yeah. So I felt like I belonged. I'm like, cool. Yeah. Like, not only did I come in with like such like energy, like I got a meeting, you know, but he made me feel like I was right. Like, I did have a meeting.
What was the name of the restaurant?
And what's that guy's name?
La Carreta.
No, the owner.
Oh, the owner. His name was like Jose. So we called him like J something.
Do you know if he's still around?
No, he sold that restaurant, and that's why they have like more of them now. To another family that is also an implant to East Tennessee.
Do they still have your painting?
They don't. So we Googled it to see, like, because you know how sometimes on Google they'll have the pictures of the restaurant around. Yeah. No. So I remember where he hung them and everything. Like there was like booths. It kind of looked like Applebee's where there was like booths on the top and like you can walk up the stairs kind of thing. So none of that was there. And I was like, no.
So what did you actually paint?
Yeah, well. So I did some replicas of Frida Kahlo. I did some replicas of Diego Rivera with like the flowers and the woman with all of the like calla lilies on top. I did a watercolor picture of the map of Mexico, which I like learned really for the first time, like where all the states are and all of like pinnacle points in Mexico and everything. Yeah. So I painted it kind of like a cloud, kind of like a dream, because I'd never been there. So it's like kind of like an image in my head of like what I think Mexico's like and stuff. And so of course my phone would ring.
So this was your first actual deal that you had made at 13 years old, right? Like your own entrepreneurship deal.
That's incredible.
How much you paid for?
I said something.
Six paintings.
Hold on. So let's go back. He comes into like the back, right? He sees all the dishwashers like pissed, like
with the dishwashers.
Yeah, and
he
so
pissed them off.
Yes, I did. But I was like, hey, he's saying it's cool. It's cool, right? Yeah. And so he sees all of the paintings around, and he's got a poker face on. He's kind of just looking at him and just like kind of like squinting his eyes, you know. And now I'm like reading off of this list, like, this is what this painting's about, this is what this painting's about, and like, this is why I think this is important. Yes, I got information. I don't only just got the paintings and, you know, and then he's just poker face. I can't tell if he likes them. Like there was other people that were like, wow, you painted this is awesome, you know, and I'm like, okay, but I had no reaction from him. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, what's going on? Until finally he goes, he like turns his head and he goes, I remember this so clearly, I can see it. He's like, he turns around and he's like teary-eyed and he's like, you reminded me why I have a restaurant in East Tennessee.
Wow.
It's because of our culture. It's because of our recipes. Because I did paintings of food too, that were like traditional to us. With the molcajete and everything. So it's like very traditional, right? And so he just was like, you reminded me why I thought it was important to have a Mexican restaurant in a place where nobody speaks the language, nobody knows who we really are, but they know us through our food. And they don't know that culture, that food goes back generations. It goes back ancestry stuff, you know? Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like I wasn't ready for that,
Price just went up though.
I'm thinking like 0, 0, 0,
we just added a comma. We just added a comma in there.
Hey, we're getting menudo every Sunday for free.
Hey, I got it. Right. Mom and Dad is in the house. It wasn't like that, but shit, my parents were not.
Oh, man.
But he was like, okay, so that day, he bought all 6 paintings. Wow. He bought all 6 paintings. I think I made around $800.
Wow.
And I was like 13 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, my God,
back
that's incredible.
then, it's like triple the price,
that's
right?
That's like $5,000
so
back then, right?
I opened up a savings account. Exactly. So I was like, cool, let's go.
Let's go.
And so I was in shock that he even said it. But I was like playing it cool, right? I was like, oh, no, you can't let it. I was like, oh, muchas gracias, señor. And I was like, yeah, me too. Like, I love it. I love how.
Do you need any more?
Let me know. I got you.
Got any friends that want some paint?
Talk to the source for the culture.
More material? Did you get more material and just keep on rotating?
I didn't. That was it for that restaurant. But it made me feel really good. And that's when that day, like, the entrepreneurship in me really was born. Yeah. And this is a story that I tell when I go to like Prep KC days in schools, which is like a career days, and they talk about their business and what it's about. With art, it's completely different because it's not like somebody can hire you to do the work really, unless it's like a mural or something a little bit more aggressive like that, or a commission piece. So it's like you can't really hold an entire business with just relying on other people to hire you. You just create, and sometimes the right person comes along, and that's what the entrepreneurship comes in. And so that's when that was born. I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
It's incredible. You know what that is, D-Rod?
Salud.
That's a salud.
Yeah,
that's a salud.
I see what kind of episode this is gonna be.
I told you.
Salud. So
we'll have to come up with one more, because if we drink 2 or 3 more, it's gonna be a different episode.
What was your parents' reaction after that?
They were super proud, especially my mom.
Yeah.
My dad always kept it cool. He was always a cool cat, like super cool. He was really down to earth, but he was a boss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was like cool. He always had that boss energy. But my mom was like, oh my God, mija, yes.
Yeah,
Te dije, y siempre no tienes que ser así. Y hay que seguir pintando. Y te voy a apoyar. And always was keeping me going and keeping me motivated and stuff. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. So I had a best friend named Erin. We went to like elementary school since I moved to Kingsport. Her mom was an art teacher for the community. She was my hero. Oh, okay. She was my hero growing up.
What's her name?
Her name is Ann Thwaites. Ann Thwaites. And so, shout out to her. Big shout out to her, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to see myself in another woman's figure, and a living person that is an artist, that is not only selling, but is teaching the ways.
Right.
That's exactly who I grew up to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I was going to do that. I just admired her so much.
Is she still around also?
She's in Kingsport, Tennessee. Yeah. Well, I think she might be close to Kingsport. I think she actually is in Kingsport. No, she is.
Have you been down there?
I have. I visited a couple of times for sure. Yeah. She was phenomenal. She took me to a lot of art fairs and stuff like that. Anytime I was over, she would always have a canvas on her kitchen table. Yeah. And around that area, she'd always have paint and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is so inspiring. Anytime I would go over, I would just see everything that she's working on. I'm like, that's who I want to be. Even though it's not like the right culture or person, because she was blonde hair, blue eyes. She is blonde hair, blue eyes and everything. And so was her daughter. But it's this woman that just creates because that's what she does. You know, an adult doing just paintings, not as like somebody hired her to do it. She does them and then she sells them. And that's just like, I didn't ever think of the concept of like being an artist in that way. So she was always my hero.
I think, I mean, first of all, Vanya, that's an incredible start to your entrepreneur career and spirit. I mean, we just have an episode drop, with Jonathan Pitayo, and this guy, he's about the same age, learning how to be an entrepreneur, learning how to make moves out here, and he was, first language Spanish and everything, so it's kind of really incredible to hear you all talk about your journey to that first, sale, really. So you're in Tennessee, you come to Kansas City about, 15 years ago or so, you said. My guess is you're still working on your art. You're still, I mean, did you know after that, like, I'm not only going to be a business person, this is going to be a career for me?
Absolutely. Not right away was I like, I'm going to focus on art. Because when I moved to Kansas City, I applied for a job for Dos Mundos newspaper. Yeah. And I worked there for about 7 years.
Oh, okay.
And so, I worked there. I did like every single position. I don't think I did them in a row, but definitely I did classifieds section. I did a lot of graphic designs with like when people didn't have. I started off with sales. Okay. So I did a lot of sales, going to business, like selling newspaper, like spots.
Right.
So, and then they got a radio station, or I think they already had a radio station, but like you couldn't sell them at the same time until like you were like in a certain level or something like that. And I started selling like radio spots.
So for those people that don't know, because we I think some of our audience is kind of wide, range. So Dos Mundos is a bilingual community newspaper. The first one that was created, and I think they've been around for 20 years.
It's got to be more than that.
It's got to be like about 30 years.
30 years, maybe? I was going to say definitely. 25, maybe.
Oh, my gosh. Reyes Media. I owe so much to Reyes Media. Man. And so I was super young. So now I'm really going to get my age, but I was super young.
Don't worry.
I don't even think I was 21.
You look very young.
Whatever it is, it's less than my number. It's less than my number.
And mine.
Yeah. So. And so, I mean, definitely I learned a lot skills that I use to this day, being a business owner now. We were selling like sponsorship packages and learning how to put packages together, which I still do to this day for my business. And so I learned a lot about like marketing and logos and how ads should be on the whim, just, there was a lot of businesses, especially Mexican owned businesses, that didn't even have a logo. So I would like put something together for them. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, this is your business. I would just take a picture of like the outside of their building and like put them up in a cool background that has their name. I'm like, boom, there's your logo, and started putting like classified ads, like when people were just like employing somebody or looking for somebody to fix something, like selling classified ads and stuff like that on the phone all the time. And people will call in like, I want to put in a classified for like obituary or something, So I had a lot of positions through the time that I was there.
I mean, 7 years is a long time to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Take it from me.
Yeah.
7 years is a long time to be somewhere. But did you go to school for any of that? Like,
I did, but not specifically for the job that I did for the newspaper. Like, that was very niche. You know what I mean? Like, nobody ever teaches you how to put a classified ad together.
Right.
Or like, but I also did stuff like billing, and we would like cut out the actual classified ad of the newspaper and like print out the invoice and mail it to them. Like, put the stamp, put their like address.
Don't nobody know nothing about that no more, right?
But nobody goes to school for that either. So it's like you kind of have to just do it on your own. You know what I mean?
And that's how it was at that time.
Exactly. What I did a lot of too is like when I had clients and I was in sales for the radio station, like translating them. Like, let's say Sunfresh was having a commercial and a special on like a meat or a vegetable or something like that. And they're like, oh, well, we want to put that on the ad this week. Can you just translate? They'll send it in English. I'll translate it in Spanish and like send it back to transcripts for the radio stations to read off. Like, this is brought to you by Sunfresh and this is what they got going on or whatever. Yeah. And so there was just a lot of moving parts to the job. Even when I was just doing sales and nothing else and not the classifieds and not anything else, I also worked front desk. I mean, I did everything in that spot, but like I said, I'm so glad that I did that because now I'm able to like run my own business. So shout out to them. And rest in peace, Glada Reyes. She had just passed away.
Yeah.
She
When
was
that? Just a
another
few
one.
months
A
ago?
month or two ago?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
way,
Rest in
like,
peace.
man, she was my hero. I mean, talk about a badass. With all respects, like, such a powerful woman. She suffered a lot through, like, breast cancer and just cancer in general, and just being one of the first
Pioneers.
people that to start a newspaper, to start like a publishing newspaper that was in both languages, which is she was a first comer too. She was born in Mexico,
Right.
and so getting here and making your own business, I feel that so much. You know what I mean? And I'm just so happy to know that she came here. She came to my business here for Dia de los Muertos. Her kids brought her here. Ed Reyes.
Yeah.
Her son brought her, which Ed became obviously was one of my bosses, and I was like his secretary for the longest, his assistant for the longest, but whatever. And so brought her, and she got to see everything that I'm doing.
Awesome.
You know, and she told me that she was so proud and she loved everything that I was doing. And I'm like, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
That is all I needed because, you know, a few months after she passed away, not too far.
Well, I mean,
that's the last time I saw her.
Getting a compliment from a person like that, from a woman like that, from an owner like that, you know, and then how as much as you've learned and, you know, through working for her. And to get
learned
that,
everything
man,
that I know today, business-wise.
To hear that from her, I'm sure is pretty emotional, right?
It wasn't just emotional. It was so, like, gratifying. I was like, I'm doing it right. I'm like, this looks like a business to her in her eyes. And she's had this business for all of these years.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, cool. It's like putting the stamp of approval. Like, you're doing all right, kid. And I'm like, hell yeah, this is awesome.
That's
you know?
That's badass.
So that was the biggest blessing. I mean, that was the biggest thing for me that I could ask for, is for her to walk in my doors and say to me, like, I'm doing all right. I'm like, yes.
That's incredible.
Vania,
Yeah.
so you're at the paper, but my guess, you're still painting, you're still doing art. A lot of your art that I've seen, at least, you know, over the years, is paintings. Mm-hmm. Did it start with pencils, or was it always painting?
Oh
or
my gosh.
What did that look like?
It started off with magic markers on the wall, like being a badass kid, just like drawing on the walls, drawing in the back of couches. That was like my thing. I don't know why.
Really?
Like that was, because I'm like, I can't get caught. Like I can't get caught.
Oh, you pull out the couch and just start drawing on it?
Oh, I was so small. I could just like fit in and just like start drawing on it. Or like on the walls
nobody
for
would
sure.
see it until they had to move it.
And they're like, oh, I know exactly who that was. Yeah, because they would see me like draw on my walls in my house. You know what I mean? But now I tell my mom I was all practice, because now I'm a muralist and I get paid for that.
That's right. Yeah, see,
that was all just
It
practice.
paid off, Mom.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so once I stopped working at the newspaper, that was really my only job, that somebody like hired me, and I would have like a paycheck, consistent paycheck in that way. Like all newspapers, everything goes digital, right? And so everybody got laid off. Mm-hmm. The Star did the same thing.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Star did the same thing. And so I already had commission pieces of people like commissioning me to do those paintings. And I was like, fuck, all right, I'll work on these commission pieces while something else happens. Like, I wanted to go work for another publication because I knew what I was doing already. I had all this, all this experience to do all these kinds of different things, you know. So I was going to look for those kinds of jobs. And so I was like, okay, let me finish this commission pieces and I'll get to like applying and like starting all over again, right?
Right.
But the commission pieces started
coming in.
Yeah. And I was like, all of a sudden, I'm like not seeing myself applying for all these jobs because I'm working and I'm painting all of these things. And so that was kind of like in the back burner for a little bit. And I was like, I'm going to ride this wave until like I'm like stuck, like, oh shit, nothing's coming in. Like, let me do that, you know?
Right.
And so, that's exactly what happened. And I just never applied for a job again.
Yeah. So then with that, can you remember about how many of those were you was like lined up to do, or people was where you were like, I don't think I don't need this type of work over here. I'm gonna start with the painting deal. Was that what it was like, or no?
All of the paintings that I got commissioned for, I was attracted to, that I wanted to do and I wanted to finish and I wanted to take my time with, you know. So like, I had enough time. I always asked for a deposit, so that those deposits always like kept me going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I never like turned anything down really.
Right.
That was like, oh, I'm not interested in doing something like that, because I'm known for my portrait paintings. I'm a portrait artist, and so more realistic stuff. And so people knew that, you know, just social media started, was that's when it started. And so like I started posting all of the paintings that I would do that were all like portrait driven. And so I would get commission pieces that were all portraits, and I was like, okay, let me take my time with this, because most of all the portraits I ever get commissioned to do are with people that passed away.
That seems like it's popular item.
Exactly.
When I die, if anybody ever comes to you and says, can you do a portrait of JL, say no, please.
Why?
Just because I don't want a portrait.
Well, you can do a portrait
that
of me
before I die. You can. I want a portrait of me before. I want to see what it looks like.
Okay.
Hey, look, can you do a portrait of both of us right here like this? You know, like, hey,
what up?
No, we'll be like this.
Salud.
That's how I want to be remembered.
That's the portrait we want right there.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I mean, if I had to think about a portrait, it would be like me painting something, but me with like a drink on the side. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like visible in the picture.
You know, I guarantee you it's the same thing with people, friends of mine and everybody, you know, that we talk to. Like, man, D-Rod got to be having a drink in his hand or doing something like that. Right?
Yeah. I mean, give me a cigar on this hand.
That's
give me a drink in this hand. You know?
That's cool.
Maybe, never mind. No,
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, you just stop right there.
Stop right there. But I guess, you know, so portraits is your thing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you feel like, you know, just as an artist, Vania, like when you go through a piece, or like, is it a client comes to you, okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I want you to do a portrait of, you know, my late whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Is there any room for, I guess, you know, your, what am I trying to say? Like
it doesn't look exactly like them, like my interpretation of the picture.
Your interpretation, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, versus they're like, no, it has to look this way. You know what I mean?
100%. I'm really respectful of photography. Though that is like the number one art, is just capturing somebody's image into perfection, right? Because that's what they actually look like.
Yeah.
When you're commissioning an artist, even though they're realistic artists, are not always 100 to the T going to look like it, because it's a painting. It's not a portrait, like an actual portrait, meaning a photography portrait, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, absolutely. I hope that everybody that commissions me sees that I have a surrealism to my art too. That surrealism being like, yeah, it's the picture of the people, but also I highlight a lot of different colors, very vibrant. Everything I do is color. Everything I do, is, yeah, it's
well,
not
just these
like,
ones behind you, they're
oh man,
I mean, they're beautiful. I mean, I love them like that.
I was gonna ask, like, can you just pick one and like, you know, describe it, like, tell us like what you were thinking when you did it. You know, maybe this one right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's so funny because this is actually a picture of one of my like friends. She posted this picture on Facebook, and I asked her permission. Hey, do you mind if I paint that of your daughter?
Oh, okay.
You know, and she had done her makeup, you know, and for Day of the Dead and all that. And I was like, that's so precious. Like the mom is teaching the daughter, like, this is what we do on this day. Like,
culture,
we paint her face and all that. And so for the birds on the side, and her mom has two, like those exact birds tattooed right here on her actual, like underneath her clavicle, I guess, right here. Yeah. And so I painted those.
Put the birds in.
Exactly. To like represent her mother, like teaching her this culture. So that's why I put like a bunch of vibrant flowers of her, like representing her growth into the culture. Like her mom is teaching her
this. That's badass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a single piece that you feel, and I know there's so many, right? Like there is so many that you've done, right? But is there a favorite one that you created that just kind of sticks with you the most out of them all? And they're all beautiful. They're all. I mean, I love everything you've
There's
done about with the ones with the small percentage that I've seen, right? And I've just seen them just a small, But is there one that sticks close to you?
Definitely as a painting, just like on canvas. My favorite painting, her name is Lucia. Lucia, I also found on my Instagram.
Okay.
There's this dance community that are Aztec traditional dancers online, and I started following a bunch of them because I go to LA all the time. I go to California all the time. And so I started following this group, and Lucia is actually one of the dancers. She danced from a very young age to this day, I think. Still, she's a dancer. And so just how you see the Native American dancers, there is that kind of talent in LA, but Aztec and very
with all the headdresses, everything on there.
It's very similar because we are Native Americans, right? So it's very similar.
Yeah.
And so, oh my gosh, this follower that somebody I followed, her mom actually posted a picture of her, and I was like, this is phenomenal. This is the era where Trump was going to or may not be elected into presidency.
Right.
And so everybody felt really bad when all the riots were happening, the protests and everything, anytime he was out there somewhere giving a speech or something.
Sure.
And so her picture was very her eyes were down. And she wasn't looking forward or anything. So it was more somber sight. And I'm like, that's how our ancestors feel. That is how we feel on the inside, our Indian self, nuestro indio inside feels right now. If he gets elected, that is anti-us. That is anti-us of where we come from, and that is anti everything we believe in and all of that. And so I asked the mom, I sent her a picture or a message, and I was like, hey, I love your picture. Do you mind if I use this in a painting? And I told her my intentions of it, and that I was going to paint it in oil, and, I was going to sell prints, and I was going to give this message out. This is how we feel right now.
Sure.
My inner child, my inner self as an ancestor feels that way right now in the U.S. But even around the world, because the U.S. has such a big voice. Anybody that is has ancestry that is Indian in this way, Native Indian, feels this way on the inside. Anytime he takes a stand for anything, anytime he takes a microphone, this is how we feel.
Sure.
And so that became my favorite. She said, yes, absolutely. This is what it's about. And I said, awesome. And so I did the painting. I put it on my business card. It sold really fast. And to this day, this is my favorite painting for sure.
I think I know which one you're talking about. That's the one with the girl with the bandana. Is it? Am I right with it? She has a thing around her forehead with the ponytails down the side, right?
Yes, yes, with the braids.
Yeah. I love that picture.
I love that painting so much. That's my favorite. And so, I felt like that was very representing of how I felt at the moment, and so that'd become kind of my logo at the time.
Okay.
But that's just the painting. If you're asking me if a mural, what my favorite mural I've ever
here we
done.
go. Let's get into that. Let's get into that.
My favorite mural has got to be the one here on the West Bottoms, and that's before I even opened a business here in the West Bottoms.
Yeah.
And so I felt really cool because what are they called?
Is it a business or somebody that reached out?
It's an organization for artists.
Okay.
It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. It's on the tip of my tongue. And I was thinking of the name before I even started to talk about it, and then it went away. Anyways, so this organization of artists gather us all together and invited us all personally to be a part, to do a mural, to be a part of the Under the Bridge here in the West Bottoms. And they're like, okay, the assignment is talk about the history of the West Bottoms, which talks about the flood, which talks about the fire, the stockyards, the fire, the flood, everything that happened.
All that history.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, cool, because I know internally that it has a lot to do with Mexican people.
Yes, it does.
Yes. That's
how. Railroad.
Exactly. Through the railroad, I know a lot. I'm like sparked, right? Because not only am I the only woman in being asked to do these kinds of murals, but I'm the only Hispanic person to tell the story, and I'm like, perfect, right?
Really?
So,
is that on the 12th Street? Is that 12th Street the bridge?
That's the 12th Street Bridge. Yep, underneath it. Okay. Underneath it, yeah. Right now, it has like brick on the floors and everything, and all the lowriders parked there.
Yeah,
when they have the throwbacks and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and so I'm like, cool, like this is perfect, like this is really cool. Scribe, I love Scribe so much. His mural is right beside of mine.
Scribe,
yes, Scribe. Yeah. So I'm like, hell yeah. So not only am I the only woman, but I'm the only Hispanic person that can tell this story. And I'm dating a guy that his grandfathers worked for the railroad, and he's like, I got material for you. Like you got it. Like I got stories, and I got all this, you know. And so I'm like, cool, I'll tell the story. And so of course on the mural I put a train coming towards you, and on the train, the front of the train, there's always numbers, the ID numbers, kind of like plates would be for the train. And I put my boyfriend's grandparents' name or birth dates on each side to represent them, because they laid down those railroad tracks.
Yeah, nice.
And so that was a huge like empowerment, like celebration move for the area.
And that's a great tribute to them.
Absolutely, they deserve it.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
You know,
that's a hidden little hidden.
It is
mark,
a hidden.
You know,
actually, I have a few in that.
I was going to say, those are like, what do they call those in movies? Like
Easter
Disney
eggs.
does them. Easter eggs.
Yeah.
There you go.
What?
Yeah, they
Easter
call them
eggs.
like Easter eggs. Like
they're like little clues that people leave in, that if you don't know, you don't know. If you know, you know.
I never heard that term.
Like in Toy Story, there's like little Easter eggs to future movies that they were working on.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. I was going to mention to you, Vania, there is something that I might reach out to you for, in terms of that. I have a photo of my great grandfather, who not that far bought a house up here on the west side, and he worked on the railroad. And the photo is him. He's from Michoacan. Yeah, he's in the middle, and he's next to two other Michoacanos.
Awesome.
And they're on the back of a caboose.
I love
and he's standing there. And it says, the sign in front of him on the end of the caboose says, leaving KC through Rock Island.
Oh my gosh.
And I showed this photo to people.
That is amazing.
And they're like, whoa.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's Kansas City.
That is so
Rock
cool.
Island Bridge, which is
Did
right
you ever
here.
figure out what year that was?
It's early 1920s, 1910, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And he's young.
Yes.
Real young
Real
looking.
young, yeah.
And but it has an American flag on the end of the caboose, which I love because it represents Mexicanos in America at that time working on the railroad, right?
Like we're Americans, doing this job. Yeah. Exactly. And so like I actually have a collection of paintings that I did of research of people that live on the west side that they're tied to the railroad. And so I collected a bunch of pictures. I work with Gene Chavez. Gene Chavez is an awesome person for a resource in that way.
He was a counselor at my high school.
Yeah? Oh, no way. That's awesome.
J.C. Harmon, shout out.
Yeah. So now he works for like the Kansas City Museum, but he's a historian at heart. He has a book that he collaborated in to tell stories, Mexican stories through the railroad. But also like the baseball league. Yeah, that was back in the day. That a lot of Mexicanos were involved in, that played in there. So all that history just came to me, finding my place as a Mexican person in Kansas City, and like relying on like how did we get here in the first place, and thinking about all that. And you know how earlier I was saying like I felt like I have to be like uber Mexican, like coming to Kansas City because I had a country accent. And they're like, well, who are you?
Can we hear it again?
No, you can't.
Oh, come on. That's a salute. Well, let's do a salute to that. Hey, listen, let's do a shot.
Salute to the railroad workers.
To the railroad workers. And to that mural that you created for them, right?
Salute to you, honestly, for doing that.
For doing that mural that you did, right? Salute to that. And then let's hear
Now
that.
we got to hear that country accent again.
Shit.
Shit.
Say it.
Shit.
Shit.
No.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Thank you.
I guess you were talking about murals though,
Yeah.
Vanya. I mean, we had an episode with ITRA icons. I don't know if you know those
Yes,
guys.
love those two.
Yeah, Isaac and Rodrigo.
Yes.
But I personally, I love murals.
Me too.
I'm blown away when I see somebody can take something off of like a paper like this and put it on a wall.
Yeah.
A whole wall. Talk us through like
No
a
easy
mural.
task.
Talk us through a mural you've done recently. Like I saw a video of you doing one at KCK Community College.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The graduates.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4.
4?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, man, that's so crazy. So how I even got started to doing murals goes back to my Mexican restaurants
Yeah.
and like doing small entrepreneur businesses in that way, to do murals inside of restaurants, to do like backgrounds of where they're from. They're not all Mexican, and so I have a lot of murals that I've done that is outside of my culture, but having to do with the Spanish language and like the Hispanic food overall,
Right.
Latino food overall.
Right.
And so I started doing murals for Mexican restaurants, though, for like taquerias. I have, all over the boulevard. I have one, Ricos Tacos. I have one for Tacos El Gallo on the Southwest Boulevard.
You hitting all them spots.
We've been to them.
Can we do a tour of your
cool
murals
thing
just to eat
is-
some tacos?
Right? The cool thing is that they reached out to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah.
And so, which is awesome because I'm like, oh my God, like I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the culture. I think the first mural that I did, though, was for a Venezuelan restaurant called Empanada Madness.
Oh, yeah. On the west side down here.
that's right there.
Yes. So, but it wasn't the one on the west side. It was the one that they have.
Is that in Overland Park?
Yes, I
Right.
think I'm
Or
not too sure if it's
the
Overland
next,
Park. It's next to Overland, like
Somewhere over there.
borderline. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was the first big mural that I did for a restaurant.
Yeah.
But I had to research. I don't know anything about the Venezuelan culture or what their thing is. And so they sent me a bunch of pictures with like the cascada, the big waterfall that they have. And then they
Right.
have like I don't know what they're called, but they're like little bus lines that you take, and it's like a bus line to get you across the water line.
Right.
And so I did that, and I just did a bunch of their main spots, in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And so like I put it all together. I like superimpose everything together onto the
Right.
wall. I take a picture of the wall that they
Okay.
actually want in there, and then I research all of the images, and then I put it together.
Kinda
like
collage it-
Photoshop.
kinda collage it together,
Collages.
yeah.
A lot of the murals are collages,
Okay.
basically.
Right.
And I like superimpose it onto the wall, and I present that, and I present my budget and what everything is going to take. And so that was basically, so shout out to Empanada Madness.
Shout
for sure.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
shout out.
They got some fire food. I
They
know
do.
that.
Oh my God, their empanadas. Oh my gosh, seriously, and so good. And so from there, I already knew a lot of business owners just because working for Dos
I
Mundos
was gonna
again,
say,
going
yeah,
back to
you're
Dos
over there,
Mundos,
yeah.
And so I had this present, right, of like working for Dos Mundos, not only like selling advertisement when I was selling, being a part of Dos Mundos newspaper, but also like when I would go to social events and I would have the name, the little tag that said Dos Mundos,
Right.
whenever I would go to events and stuff like that, so people
Right.
would know, And so that's really that's why I owe so much to Reyes
Yeah,
Media,
absolutely.
to them, the whole entire family, and like bringing that up. And I'm sure they they remember me, but that so many people came, came and went kind of thing. So it's
Sure.
like,
But I mean, 7
Yeah.
years though.
Yeah, it all worked together.
Hey.
It all worked together. I mean,
Crazy
that,
time.
with
Yeah.
that job that you had with
Man.
them and building your
Yeah.
own company and building what you do now,
Yeah.
it just kind of all worked out.
and it worked
together.
out because I wasn't from here.
Yeah.
So with that, I got to know people without me really reaching out. It's like on purpose. I had to know those people.
Right.
Those people had to know who I was and stuff like that to like be able to reach out to me to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so.
And by the way, do you know that I paint? So that 13-year-old girl came back out, right?
Hey, all you dishwashers.
I'm an artist.
By the way, so I can let
Hey, let me talk to the main one here. Let me talk to the main one.
I'm a boss.
So you are both. But do you know, D-Rod?
Yes.
This is the fourth artist that we've talked to
Yay.
now that has a piece at the Nelson Atkins Art Gallery.
Yes, it does. Yes,
Shout out
she
for
does.
Right.
Yes,
Shout
she
out
does.
to the
Yes, she
Nelson
does.
So-
Atkins. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I think first of all, we've talked a lot about their layered presence
Yeah.
exhibit. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
a year-long exhibit.
Yes.
You know,
It's a great thing, man. It's beautiful.
God.
Man, it is beautiful. I
Thank
mean,
you.
some of the most
I agree.
incredible art is
I
in there.
totally agree.
And you know, Hispanic Latino artists that are there in the community. I mean, man,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not everybody, but
It's not everybody, and you're right. There's
Yeah.
so many people that like also deserve that kind of highlight that
Absolutely.
weren't there. And I have a feeling that there's going to be a part two, and I
Extension.
hope.
There's got to be an extension.
Hey.
There's
I hope
got to be
there's
an
a part
extension.
listen, we're
Yeah.
gonna do our part. You know, like, hey,
to put the word out there, like, hey, you
That
missed a
or
couple of people.
Try and
you
get,
missed
try and
a
get
couple
them.
of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get
There's
who
some people
can.
who've been around here for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need
So
to-
here's my story about the
Yeah, go
Nelson
ahead.
Atkins.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Okay, so you got your email, right?
yeah.
You always got your junk box, right?
Oh my God.
I always don't even look at my junk box. I'm like, pff, click all trash.
Don't
right?
want them Target advertisements.
The one time I actually looked through all of my, I mean, I must have been bored, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like looking through all of my junk mail, like making sure, like everything. That's where I found the invitation to exhibit at the Nelson Atkins through the president himself.
Wow.
Sending me a direct invite to
Oh,
be
man.
to be an artist, a part of this.
Now it's
exhibition.
junk mail though. Did you believe it right away?
Of course, because it had the
did?
logo.
Yeah.
It had
Okay,
like
okay,
it was like
okay.
legit. It was his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
him. You know what I'm saying?
How old was that when
God.
you seen it? Like, if it was in there, was
Thank
it there for
God
like
it
a
was just a
week?
couple. No, it was a couple of days. I'm extended out to 3-day-old.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. I open it and it has his name, right? And I'm like, oh shit. So I open it right away because it wasn't Nelson Atkins.
Right.
It was his name.
Oh, okay.
And so I opened it and I was like, oh shit, I know him. Like, what? And then it had, of course, the letterhead that said, like, Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. And it had
Yeah.
his letter, like, it would be my pleasure to introduce, like,
yeah.
please be a part of this exhibit. And I was like, I was out of my mind. I printed it. I printed that email out and I was like,
Hell yeah.
this is crazy,
Hell
right?
yeah, yeah.
Because when I moved to Kansas City, the first thing I did is visit
to the art gallery.
went to the
Yeah,
Nelson
that's right.
Atkins,
Yeah.
right? And so I always told myself, I'm going to be at the Nelson Atkins. All it was artists that passed away.
Yeah.
There was like, you know,
Some really artifact.
Michelangelo's back in the
some
day.
old,
and,
yeah,
like,
some
all
real
this other
old
stuff. Like, at the
artifactual
time,
art.
it was like when I went, it was like the Egyptian tombs and all this other
yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
came through.
sure,
like you know
yeah.
how like shows come and go, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how, but I'm gonna be here one day. Like this is like a thing that I did. I said to myself, and I was like, I'm gonna be here one day. Like I don't know how. I don't know. Like, is it after I pass?
Spoke
like I
it
don't
into
know.
reality.
Exactly.
That universe, man.
When I saw this email, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Did you
And I
start-
double checked
was
it. I called.
emotional? Was it
Oh, I
emotional
called.
moment?
Yeah.
But he's the president of the Nelson Atkins Museum, and he's Mexican, from Mexico. First language is Spanish.
okay.
Okay.
Like, and it'll come to me in just a second, and it's in the tip of my tongue. One of those parts.
Well, we gonna get him on Interrupt
Okay,
KC.
yeah.
You should, because
We
I'd
will.
be a
Matter of
beautiful.
fact, tell him, email him back.
I've got his
Hey,
email address.
You need
and I
to
can
holler
Forward
at
Yes.
this. Forward
Interrupt
this.
KC.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so he emailed me and he was like, it would be our pleasure to
That's
like,
badass.
have you present as Nelson
That's
Atkins. And I was
badass.
like, fuck, that's
So then you had to create a piece? Or you
Yeah.
gonna
so
use
yes,
a
you
piece?
did have to create a piece. Well, they give you the option if
Yeah.
you would like to
Enter it or create.
exactly already have something in mind that you already had or
Yeah.
create something. Okay, I'm a very spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my roots are like I am my ancestors' like future prophecy.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Nice.
my ancestors like work through me a lot. And when I pray, I don't know about you, I'm a devote to Virgen de Guadalupe because I was born on her day, and my name is Vania Guadalupe.
Oh.
And
okay.
so I'm a devote to her, but my ancestors like really root me.
Yeah.
And like I always pray to my ancestors,
Yeah.
but I never knew their name. And I never knew who I'm really talking to. I know who in my mind, like my moms and my moms and my moms.
Right. Right.
But I never really think about them being an actual person, having names, having last names, like who are they, you know? And so when I was asked to do this task to create a painting, I was like, I'm going to pay homage to my grandmothers, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even have this opportunity.
Shout out, man.
Because I wouldn't even pray to those ancestors to get me here in the first place.
I think that's beautiful, dude.
Yeah.
I think it is too,
I think
man.
that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
100%.
Honestly.
At this point, like in my career, I was already in here in
Right.
Monarca Art Space,
Right.
which this is the epitome of what I wanted to create, not only for me, for the community in Kansas City, and what has Kansas City had done for me,
Yeah.
and giving back to that. You know what I mean?
Which
And
But I
you
think,
have,
Vania,
what you have.
I would say this as a born and raised Kansas Cityans, Enterrupt KC, it's not just that. It's what you have done for the city. And I mean that, honestly, because, you know, I look at this space, your gallery. I don't know a lot of other Latinos that have galleries.
how many
you know?
how many Latino-based galleries do you know of?
Exactly. That's my point. So
Maddie Rhodes.
Yeah, Maddie Rhodes. Shout out Jenny. You know, I mean, but the thing is that, you know, your art, the mural you just talked about, you know,
Yeah,
giving
it was
shout outs to
wonderful.
people
Right.
whose families
you
from
show
here, you know.
homage to it.
The Kansas Community College, the four
Yeah.
murals you have over there, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I went there and took classes, you know. I'm from KCK.
Absolutely.
Pretty much. I'm just saying, it's not just what the city's done for you, Vania. It's what you have done for the city.
Well, it's my time to give back.
Hey, shout out.
It's my time to give back,
Yeah.
and that's why Monarca Art Space was created in
Yeah,
the first
talk
place.
about that. Talk
you know?
about that.
Absolutely. Like Monarca, calling it Monarca, the monarch butterfly is a representation for immigrants, you know, regardless of where you're from. The immigrant butterfly emigrates to a better opportunity, even though they know that their generation or themselves won't make it to the better place. They know that their generations will make it to the better
Yeah.
place. So they know where to establish their eggs so that they can grow, and they know to fly to that place, to that
Yeah.
better place. That's their goal.
Yeah, yeah.
And so as me being brought here to the U.S., I know that was a better opportunity for us, even though I did not know that.
Yeah.
They knew that for me. And being here, I knew that that was the goal. Without my parents sitting me down and being saying, well, this is the better thing. You know, like I
Yeah.
knew that.
Right.
It's like instinctually, I knew
Wise
that.
beyond your years.
Yeah, just like you just are. You will. It's not just that. Like people just know. Like maybe your ancestors.
You got
knew
that feeling. You just got.
Yeah, and
just go
sometimes
with it.
and so basically that's why I called it Monarca Art Space, because I want this to be an opportunity for other artists as well, and so that's why I feature other artists in my walls to be able to have the word out for them.
Right.
You know, I have art studios. I have 4 art studios available for other artists, and I have wall space, right? That's for other artists, and giving them the opportunity to find a better solution, a better place for their art as well.
I love that. So
love it too.
Monarca Art Space.
Yes.
What's that website? So
MonarcaArtspace.com.
.com.
And MAS is short, Monarca
Mas.
Art Space, MAS, MAS, which means like MAS community,
it.
right? Like
Mas
MAS
community.
art.
But I love the
I
Mosque
love it, the
because I
Mosque,
could always
yeah.
do some Mosque.
I love
Absolutely.
the Mas around there, man. That's all.
And me too.
Kansas
That's
City
what it's
against
all
everybody,
about. And
baby.
you know what? Kansas City, like, is so tight. It's such a tight knit community.
Yeah.
And so to even have like a logo that says Mas that is in Spanish is so very ours.
Yeah.
So very ours. So it's
Yeah.
not just like our initials MAS. It's
Right.
Mas as a word with the accent on the
yeah,
A, meaning Mas, meaning more
love
art,
that.
more love,
Yeah.
like more community. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's not a lot of galleries that are Hispanic based. That it's not just
Right.
like Maddie Rhodes is behind Maddie Rose is like, like domestic violence
they do
in
a
the
lot.
community.
Yeah, they do a lot
and
for
they
the
have a
community.
huge message behind it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the art gallery is another extension of how they get donations. I want everyone to know out there that anytime you buy an artwork from Maddie Rose, that is going back to their nonprofit,
That's right.
which is
Yeah. That's a good
that's
point.
what it is. You know what I mean? And so me being in Kansas City and like exhibiting in art galleries and stuff like that, they take a lot of percentage. I don't know if you know that, but they take like 40 to 50% of your commission.
Of your commission?
Absolutely.
Wow.
So that's why art is so expensive in galleries, because now artists have to add that on top of what they actually want to make into their art. So if my art piece is like $500,
Right.
I have to add 40% on top of that and what the commission is going to
Yeah.
be.
People don't know that. People don't know that,
But
right?
the difference is that at Maddie Rhodes is that all that commission goes towards their programming.
Right.
It goes to their nonprofit message. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And so that's why coming here and starting this out from nothing,
Right.
just a gallery, I don't want to be the kind of gallery that takes that percentage. I want to go back to the gallery. I only take 20%. And the 20% goes back to operations and overhead.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, you got bills
absolutely.
here,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, but we also have our artist studios, which is like, I have 5 artist studios. One is already taken, which is in the basement, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But I have 4 artist studios up here in the first floor that are available for artists that are interested in doing so.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that having artists here, I can apply for the grants to grant the artists to be here to pay at no price to them.
Yeah.
So then that way other people can support the artists, and hopefully it'll be somebody Hispanic.
So you have Vania, you have featured. Is there
I do.
monthly features?
Every month, every single month, we
Okay.
have new art in the gallery. Absolutely.
And is like somebody can contact you on the website and
Absolutely.
say, hey,
Yes.
can you
I
look
got
at
some
my stuff? I'd
pieces.
love to
Social
be one of
media,
your featured artists.
It could be our social media. It could be a DM. Just be like, hey, I'm an
Yeah.
artist. I have art. Could you feature me? Even if you're not a feature, I always have up to like 4 to 5, 6 artists exhibiting at the same time. So if
Bring
you
some
only
pieces
had
out,
exactly,
right?
if you only had 4 pieces to show, I could show that. It didn't have to be a big collection. The featured artist almost always has like 5 to 10 pieces.
Yeah.
It could be more if you wanted to be a solo show,
Right.
obviously. But yeah, so if you only had 6 pieces and then other artists wanted to exhibit at the same time, like we could do that. We're
Yeah,
booked
yeah,
up
yeah.
to November right now,
Wow.
which is really
Oh,
cool.
man. That's great.
it's
That's
awesome.
great. That's
I've only
great.
been here a year.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
was
I
gonna
mean,
s-
and you
yeah.
also have like First Friday events. Is
We
that
have
what you
First
have?
Friday. First Friday is our biggest event, which is really cool. It's mostly just a kickback for all the community to see the
Right.
new art that we have here on the walls. But it's our biggest opportunity to sell as well.
Yeah.
All the art is very like fairly priced. I never
Yeah.
take in any artwork that's like $5,000. Nobody's gonna
Yeah.
buy that. That is coming here in our community, like this gathering. Most of the art that sells is something that like speaks to them personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is my community. This is what it's about. And I'm like, yes, I'm trying to like capture
I
us
met
together.
one of your artists. One of the vendors that was there that evening. You know, one of your First Friday. Shout out the homie Dink.
Oh, I love Dink.
Dink is dope,
He's
man.
awesome.
And he had a
Yeah.
little setup here. You know, this and that. So vendors can contact you as well and kind of come in and set up as well.
Absolutely. Vendors can contact me. Vendors like him like have smaller pieces too that are like 3D printed, or like cups or coasters or t-shirts and stuff like that. They can definitely contact me. I'm really interested in artists that make things themselves, not that are like resellers,
Right.
you know, even though I do want to provide that platform, but not at the same time as First Fridays.
Sure.
For artists that do even keychains, it could be clothing, it could be, leather goods, it could be, I don't know. It's
Anything,
endless out
right,
there. If
anything.
you make it yourself, I want to help you sell it.
Absolutely.
If you're a vendor, all I do is I take I never charge more than $50 a table for you to sell your work, and you get to keep 100% of what you sell that day.
Nice.
Actually, in our boutique, I do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Our boutique rentals go from $75 to $150, and then whatever sells in the boutique, they keep.
Oh.
Well, I know that I got this hat right here from this place.
Shout out to
right?
Intro in Kansas City.
Yeah.
SOKC. SOKC, so they're one of our brands that I carry here too. They have T-shirts, they have hats and everything. Shout out to them.
Yeah, so I support that, man, 100%.
Absolutely.
What I wanted to ask you, Vania, was about yours also, right? So you got all these great paintings.
Yeah.
What about prints? You got prints for all these as well?
Prints. I do, which is really funny because these are the only originals I have left. I've sold almost every one of them.
Really?
Man,
I've had bids and stuff to to buy them.
These?
Yeah. But now I'm so advanced in my craft that it's not just the originals, but it's also the copyright. So artists that are just starting out, please know that it's not just the original artwork, it's also the copyright for them to be able to use the artwork.
Oh, that's good information.
Exactly. Yeah. Even to photograph them and put them up, that's a copyright infringement. So if they want to put them at their house, no problem, right? Because it's just the people that they invite in their house. But if it's their business and other people are taking pictures of it, or they use that infringement image into their logo.
Maybe they try to use it and they create
in their booklet.
it.
Absolutely.
And try and take it from
Exactly. So let's say I sell couches and I take a picture of my couch and there's this picture in front of it. That's an infringement of copyright. Okay. So you can actually sell the copyright so that they have permission to use that image for their business.
Wow.
So not only do you sell the commission piece, you also sell the rights for them to use the commission piece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's valuable information.
It is really valuable for young artists, especially.
Absolutely. Here's the thing that artists that create it automatically have the copyright to it. For them to be able to sell the copyright, they can go online and say, hey, I own this copyright because I own it. You can even submit it to whatever state you're in and say, hey, I own the copyright for this. Here's the image of it. They'll send you back paper to say you own this paper, and they give you a code.
Oh, okay.
Image code. And so when you go back and somebody else wants to sell it, you can go online and say, I have a copyright image, and here's my code. They want to sell it. Or they want to buy it from me.
Right.
And then they come up with a quote, which whatever it is, you can put your own estimate to it and say that that's how much you want to quote it for.
Right.
Depending on how much they're going to use it. Like if it's going to be flyers, if it's going to be like their permanent logo. Their permanent logo means they're going to use it for everything, right? So the price goes up in that.
Yeah, for sure.
So you could use a lawyer for this, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to do that. You can also do it on your own and say, hey, I'm selling you the copyrights. Here's the release for that. And you come up with a document that says, hey, I release this image up to you to use however you'd like. Or you could release it and document, say, hey, I only want you to use it for marketing. I don't want you to make copies of this print or anything. Even though it's in your lobby or anything, that doesn't mean you own the rights to be able to distribute that freely.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it.
Man.
There's a lot to it.
There is a lot to it.
Is that what I wanted to ask you too, to kind of get a little bit different is there a certain type of music you listen to when you be
when I'm painting?
Yeah, when you're painting, like when you create this one or this one or this one. I mean, depending on what it is, right? Like, because I imagine that each piece, right? Each piece got something that you're feeling. And sometimes maybe you're a little more anxious or you're a little bit more
I can dig
humble.
it, like a vibe.
Yeah, right.
I can
so
dig it.
Is there a certain thing?
No, not really. I always maintain that I am the vibe.
Hey.
I am putting that out.
Yeah. So no
It's
music?
not like, no, I can listen to music, but it doesn't matter what I listen to because I have the power of doing that.
Right.
Here's the thing, and it's more like intuitive.
Yeah.
if you listen to like a podcast, if you listen to like music or something like that when you're painting, you'll always remember that. It's almost like note taking.
Right.
You'll go back to that space when you're looking at it. It's like, oh, I remember I was listening to this part of the podcast, or I was listening to this part of the movie or a series or anything. Right. So it almost takes over the moment. You know what I mean? But when you are the vibe.
Yeah.
You are in control of doing this from start to finish.
And you're feeling that more.
You can listen to whatever and not even think about the music.
I like that.
Because you're in the groove.
Yeah, you're in. You're zoned out.
When the groove takes you, it could challenge the colors that you choose. Yeah. It could challenge the environment around you, really. So it creates the vibe.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm always like in the control of the vibe because I am easily interrupted. You know what I'm saying? I'm easily like, oh, social media and things like that. And I'm always like, I can always tell like where I stopped or when I continued and stuff like that. So I'm always thinking, absolutely, when I'm interrupted. But when I'm in the vibe, I'm the vibe.
What's the longest you painted a piece?
Oh my gosh. If we're talking about canvas piece, I can work around 6 hours with like
no interruptions.
Maybe one break. Maybe one break, but that's just me.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one break because a lot of it, you have to hold your breath. It's a lot of breath work.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So especially when you're a portrait artist, you are looking at the fine details. You're thinking of the fine details. You have to kind of almost hold your breath for you to do like the fine lines, right? And then you breathe. And then you continue and you're doing all this. So just depending, because your breath has a lot to do with your steady hand.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's why I could never be an artist. I'm serious. I breathe too hard.
But you know what it is? I'm a portrait artist. So it's like, it like depends on what you're working on. Let's say I'm working on the background. It's completely different because it's on and on and on and on and on. So it's like completely different. But what you're working on, like the eyes, the lips, the nose, like you want it to look like the picture. So it's like you're very concentrated, like you are the vibe. That's what I'm saying.
I was going to ask you about that, Vania. What is the hardest? I mean, you're a portrait artist.
Yeah.
What is the hardest feature? The fingers?
The fingers, the toes.
Really?
For any artist, any artist will tell you that.
I thought the eyes.
The eyes is pretty small. It's just a tiny, tiny picture. Like if you're going like this,
everybody's eyes are so different.
A little bit room for error, probably for the eyes, maybe.
You know what? Depends on the picture that you're working with. Because not all artists.
True that.
All artists are like working with a life model, right?
That's
so they're taking a picture. So wherever the eye lands, that's where the little dot goes. So like, you know what I mean? On the highlight.
Being that, you know, if you've created pieces of like and they're normally portraits of people that have passed or something like that, right? And so it's always got to be like right on point.
Hey, this one right behind you, her eyes look incredible.
I know it, man. I know. That's what
her eyes look incredible.
Both of them.
I mean, they're all incredible, but I'm looking at her eyes.
Yeah.
Is this a real person?
You know what? I made that person up.
She's beautiful.
Oh my God.
Thank you. So she's like a collaboration of a couple of portraits because I always have to have a reference, right?
Yeah.
So I use a bunch of different references and I put them together so that there's no like copyright infringement of somebody in particular, you know?
Yeah.
And so I kind of made her up, but I did use an eyeball of somebody's so that I didn't really utilize my like intuition or my imagination to come up with the eyeball because in the portrait where the eyeball lights end up is how realistic the image becomes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like not even just the dark, because not all people have the dark eyes, but in the white, it's not really white. It's like a tannish white. You know what I mean? Right. So where the tannish light and the actual white light of the reflection comes in is what makes it realistic.
It's beautiful, man.
I'll tell you what, I might hit you up for a Salma Hayek.
Portrait?
No. My wife knows. My wife knows. Like, Salma Hayek.
The obsession is real.
I am obsessed. I
love it. She's gorgeous. Absolutely.
Salma is so beautiful.
She's really cool.
You know what? One thing to kind of go to a different direction. One thing I wanted to ask you about that I knew about you is that you was able to meet Cheech Marin.
Oh my God.
Right? You went to his can you explain that? Can you talk about that?
It's so crazy. I need to go back a little bit about my painting that I did of my ancestors of that is hanging in the Nelson Atkins Museum right now. So that painting that he got to see in person, which is fucking, I can't, it's like I'm beside myself to even think about that. You know,
I mean,
it's like so many worlds colliding.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like theater and art and like music is what really makes my culture, because I didn't know otherwise.
Right.
So at that time, I'm watching movies, I'm doing this, like that is my culture.
Yeah.
So it's not really the culture I was living in. That's what I like resigned as, you know? So like watching all of this Cheech and Chong, like absolutely.
Yeah,
like,
that's everybody's shit back then.
Yes. But think about it. When you're not living that world and you're watching that world, that is you.
I ain't gonna lie though, and I'm not trying to stop your story.
Yeah.
But Born in East LA, to me, is the ultimate Cheech Marin movie, man. Like,
well, listen,
oh
I was thinking about something. I was thinking about. It's funny you bring that up. Yeah, man. I wanted to ask for you to give the best Cheech Marin impression.
me?
Yeah, sing a song. Okay, but you know that he's artistic, right? Not only does he do art, but he also sings songs.
Cheech Marin.
Yeah, what song do you? What song?
Mexican Americans.
There you go. Do it. Finish it. At least two more parts.
Mexican Americans don't like to get up early, so they do it really slow.
All right, do another song that he does. You know another song?
Man, I'm trying to
East
think.
LA?
I know there's a couple in Born in East LA.
Yeah, come on, man. Which one? Come on.
Oh my God, you put me on the spot. Born in East LA. I remember that.
Okay, so mine I was thinking about was this one that goes dun 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 dun. Mama talking to me, trying to tell me how to live.
Yes.
Right?
See, if we would have been able to meet Cheech Marin, we could have hit
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
So
you
all
met
this
him.
is going through my mind, right? All the songs, all of this going through my mind. I'm like, no, fucking play cool.
Yeah, play cool. Hands can be shaking a
Listen,
lot.
there's 22 artists. I'm 22. In the way that, okay, it's a circular motion where the Nelson Atkins exhibit is, right?
Yeah.
I'm at the very bottom because...
At the end?
At the end, because they started on the left.
Yeah.
Shit.
Right? I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to listen to everybody else's, like, I'm going to think about what I'm going to say.
What they
'cause
gonna
when
tell
I get
them?
there, I'm going to know exactly what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Because I was nervous, right? I was like,
Yeah.
I'm a wreck. I'm like, all right, cool, play cool. So I'm like listening to everybody's, oh, I got this. Like, everybody's like giving their description. I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm talking about my ancestors. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right? And so that he's going through, he's like listening, he's just nodding his head the whole time. Sometimes he doesn't ask questions for some of the art.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And he's going through it and he was just like, okay, cool. He's like nodding his head. And I'm like, okay.
Your
I'm
turn.
gonna give, here goes, second to last. And he goes, oh, hey, what's up, pink pants? I'm like, oh, shit. Because I'm wearing pink pants. You know how like some people like they don't know your name, but they describe you and what you're wearing when you're a girl. And you're like, hey, curly hair. Or like, it's like pink pants. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. So I'm like, yeah, pink pants. I'm like, hell yeah. I mean, if I'm going to be known as something, I'm like a feminist, right? So I'm like, hell yeah, pink pants. I'll dig it. I'll take it in that way.
Yeah, that's Cheech.
And exactly.
Yeah.
He's so funny. So I'm nervous. And as soon as he does that, he like breaks down my walls.
Yeah.
Breaks down my ankles.
You just loosen up. You just loosen.
I loosen up and I become I wake up to myself. I'm like, oh yeah, this is who I am. Like I am supposed to be in this moment. You know what I mean? And so I tell him, hey, this is a painting of my ancestors. They are who allowed me to become myself.
Yeah.
When I didn't know myself, they taught me this is who I am.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
You know, so it's a picture of me, the back of me anyways, the back of my head, and I'm wearing a braid because in my ancestry, we're all indigenous, right?
Yes, yes.
So all of my ancestors from my mother's side are all from Durango, going back 5 generations.
Wow.
They're all 20 to 30 minutes away from each other, born and raised.
Yeah.
in Durango, Mexico.
Yeah.
And so I did a braid in my hair, and on the braid, I did the roots underneath. So here's me, my braid, and the roots going out underneath, and I named my mom, my grandma, great-grandma, great-great, great-great-great. So 5 times grandmothers.
Awesome.
And how I found those names, going back to like who I pray for and everything, and I realized I don't know their names. I don't know who they are. They're somebody, obviously,
Yeah.
but I don't know their names. I don't know their identity. I had never met them. I asked the Mexican council, like, hey, can you help me find my grandmothers?
Found my tree.
Exactly. I have this big project that is for this Nelson Atkins Museum and like this big thing. He's like, Mika, the council she's so cool.
Yeah.
She was just like, hey, especially if they're from Durango, that means that they're from an indigenous background, because those are like the people that they were too high to get a hold of.
Yep.
Right? They're from a mountain.
The mountains, yeah.
And so they're like, go and look back at the Catholic registries. And exactly, I did that. I went through the Catholic registries. I looked up, what is it called? Catalina Victoria. Durango, and I found them right away.
Found them. Wow.
I found them right away. I started with my
God.
great-grandmother because I knew her full last name.
What was her name?
My great-grandmother. So her name it started with Silva, and I started with Silva, and from there, all of these names came up, which was not that many.
Yeah.
It was really not that many from the mountain there.
Yeah.
And so Petra was her first name.
Wow.
Petra, and from her first name Petra, Silva, I kind of went by from there and kind of went out. I'm sorry, it wasn't Silva, it was Favela. Sorry about that.
Favela.
Silva was my dad's grandmother. So no.
Beautiful
Favela.
names, though.
Thank you, Favela.
Beautiful names.
And so from Favela, went from there, which was not her last name. It was her married last name. I did not know her
Maiden
name. So from Favela, I found her marriage certificate. From her marriage certificate, I found her grandmother's or her mother's name. You know, because in your whenever you are getting your baptism or your marriage certificate, you always have either a godfather, a godmother, or you have your parents' last name. It had her mother's last name. And from that last name, I came to like seeing the Lopez last name, which Lopez super deep down, right, to Mexican roots.
Yeah.
And I found that name, and from there I found her mother's last name to 5 times grandmothers.
Wow.
5 times grandmothers with my mom.
Wow.
My mom, grandma, great-grandma, great-great-great.
Wow.
I know that piece you're talking about.
Yes.
I've seen that piece.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And so from the back of me, there's this braid, which is traditional to Native people.
Yeah, for sure.
And from there, I put my braid down to all of their names. My mom, grandma, great-grandma, great-great-great, great-great-great-great, all the way down. 5 times generations, because that's who I pray to anyways. That's who got me here in the first place. I'd like to think that I am the image of who they thought.
And you are.
The people, their women of their
That's awesome.
family would come from, whatever it is that I thought that life would be, right? Yeah. And that's just crazy.
Hey,
and so I'm like, hey.
They're looking at you right now,
Yes.
Vania, like so proud.
Oh.
You know they are.
What did Cheech say when you told?
I want to. So I told Cheech that. I told Cheech that story. You know what he said? He said, "You made it out. You made it out of that mountain.
Wow.
You made it out of that circular, just that spot.
Yeah.
You were meant to be somewhere else.
Wow.
Outside of that mountain."
That's great.
And all I was thinking about was like, oh shit. My answer to him was like, I made it out, sure. Like I'm in the U.S. now because I'm first generation, right? So or not even first generation out. My kids would be first generation out, but sure, I made it out. But it's like, is that what the Mexican people want? Is to make it out? Like, do they want that? Like, or do they want to be in that spot and make it greater to like be able to profound that, like what does that mean?
Prosper there.
But I was thinking it was coming from a Mexican American telling me that you made it out. So I'm like, okay, just like my parents were thinking about making it out to a better opportunity or something like that. But not all Mexican people can think like that. It would be no country.
Right.
It would be no Mexican country. So I was like, my reaction was like, yes, but no, but yes, but no kind of situation. Like, yeah, like I had no choice in it. So like, I don't know what I would be if I were there, but like, how would my like grandmothers would be? Like, how would they feel, you know? So
I can vibe with all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
I can, because I'm telling you, man, like D-Rod, I feel like, and I've said this to family, I've said this to my kids.
Yeah.
I know, and for me, it's not just my grandmothers. I still have one alive, thank God.
You're
my
lucky.
grandfathers. I'm like, my grandfathers, my great-grandfather. I told you the photo. Like, I remember when I got that photo, like none of my uncles and aunts ever even had that photo. They never saw it. And I got this photo, and they were just like, where'd you get that photo at? We never seen that photo. Yeah. And I was like, because my history is important to me.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And seeing that and the ties to Kansas City, it made that fire of culture just flame up. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm telling you, Vania, man, they're looking down, man. They're proud of you.
Yeah, that's great.
They're proud of you for sure.
I appreciate that. All I want them to know is that I followed my dreams. I followed my heart. That if it wasn't in my heart, then I wouldn't be doing it. And that's all I can do, right?
Hey.
So that's all you could do is
It's
just
obviously,
fully that.
It's obviously. And
any entrepreneurship person will tell you that if they didn't feel safe in that space, that they wouldn't even start it in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
If they didn't feel like they belonged or that they were supposed to do that, they wouldn't, because there'd be no motivation. And if they're just doing it for money, most of the time they'll only work for a certain amount of time.
Right. No, those are good points. Those are really good points, Vania, man. I mean, on behalf of Enterrupt KC, man, we're really proud to see you, everything you're doing for the city.
And we'll support you 100%.
We're going to support you 100%.
Thank you.
I guess just a couple questions here before we wrap up, Vania, because this has been awesome talking to you, getting to know you on a deeper level.
Thank you.
Who would you say were the earliest supporters you had in your career as an entrepreneur? I know you had mom and dad there, right? You talked about the Reyes family with Dos Mundos, right? Was there anybody else, like early supporters that you can think of?
Ann Thwaites for sure. She was just my role model. I know she didn't put herself out to be that way, but she was such a role model to me, which is crazy because right now I'm actually commissioning her to do a painting for me.
That's badass.
That I'm paying her to do, which is freaking crazy. Okay, there's this restaurant called Pals.
Here?
No. In Kingsport, Tennessee. It's
Okay.
called Pals, right? P-A-L-S. Pals. And
Say it in Tennessean language.
I think I am. Pals.
Pals.
Pals. Yeah, they got that sweet tea.
Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
I had a sweet tea every morning. So, yeah, for sure. Pals, I mean, they had a tea like this.
Yeah.
Every day. Everybody would make that freaking...
Yeah.
The place was this big, man. It didn't, obviously, nobody could go in it. It was a drive-through kind of thing, and the line was up like crazy, and it was all high schoolers.
For that sweet tea.
Yeah, for that sweet tea.
For that
That's
sweet
right.
tea.
I'm talking about that sweet tea. I'm not talking about like the tea that you just put sugar in. No. This was like
Well, what's the difference?
syrup.
This was like a bag of
syrup.
If you don't know syrup, it's syrup and sugar. Syrup.
Really? Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
I did not know that.
It's that
syrup?
southern sugar
that syrup, boy.
of the sweet tea.
Boy, that syrup right there, boy. You don't know nothing about that syrup,
I don't know nothing about that
that
syrup.
syrup.
Yeah.
That syrup.
So she's
Yes.
commissioning you.
She's
Commissioned
commissioning. Yeah, I commissioned her to do a painting of the Pals, which is like, oh my God, this is everybody. It's like when you got a car, when the first time you got a car and you're waiting in the line just to get a freaking
Sweet tea.
Oh shit!
So
like you made it.
Is Pals like a drive-through?
Pals, it is a drive-through.
Okay.
It's a drive-through, and that's all it is. And it's like
And it's still there.
turquoise, like tile building with a big old like
Big old tire.
It actually has a big like hot dog and a burger on top, and that's what it is. That's what it is. It's like an acrylic like big hot dog and a burger on top, and all the way around it, it's like a turquoise like tile, and it says "Pals" on it.
And it's still there?
It's still there to this day. They've got to have like 20 of them by this day. Like they have to have them.
Wow.
And so I'm commissioning her to do a painting of the Pals because that's such a like
monument.
It's a
monumental thing, but
Yeah.
also like if you're coming up and you just had your first car and you're waiting in that line, you're like, I fucking made it.
Yeah.
I'm an adult. I'm waiting in the line for Pals to get my motherfucking tea before I go to high school.
Everybody seeing my car right
Exactly.
here.
Like
There's
everybody
somebody
see
from
me.
Tennessee
That's
gonna
the
watch
show
this
out.
video and be like,
Exactly.
she's right.
It's like, that's right. Palsy is a shit.
Shout out to
Exactly.
Rock, what's Kingsport?
Kingsport, Tennessee.
Shout out
KPT.
KPT, man.
Hey, shout out.
423. That's the area code. 423.
Everybody out there
KPT.
watching, man.
Yeah,
Vanya,
which
I
is
was
crazy.
going to ask you though, what is some advice you would give to a young artist right now?
My number one advice would be like keep doing what you're doing. Keep sketching as much as you can. If you are wanting to be a tattoo artist and your thing is fucking roses, do the best rose you can. Like just work on that rose the entire time. I've taught, this is one thing I didn't talk about but I've been a teacher for about 6 to 7 years. I taught kids 10 to 17-year-olds.
Do you still?
But I've also, I haven't since I moved here.
Okay.
Just because I haven't found a sponsor for those classes. Those classes are $15 a person.
Okay.
And so I never want to charge my students. I never want to charge the parents to be a part of my art classes. But I've also had adult classes, and most of those artists in taking my adult classes are entrepreneurs that are wanting to get into the art tattoo industry.
Okay.
But they don't know how to shade.
Right.
Shading is the number one thing.
Yeah,
like how to be able to shade, how to be able to line and all of those things.
Yeah.
If you do not know how to shade on paper, you cannot shade on a machine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of machine you're, a rotary or whatever you're using, you cannot do it.
Right.
And so I've had a lot of adults come through my program into the shading like industry and how to do that because there is a translation there. If you're a colorist, there is a translation there. If you are new school, old school, whatever you do, shading is your number one thing, right? Not just outlining. Outlining anybody could do steady if you have a steady hand.
Yeah.
You can do it with any kind of machine, right? But the shading part, you cannot. If you can't do it on paper, you can't do it on a skin.
Right.
Skin is so complicated, right?
Yeah.
But with kids, like I have taught painting to drawing and entrepreneurship at the same time. So I always teach kids at the same time how to value their art and how to price their artwork at the same time.
That's how you did it.
Exactly.
That's how you did it.
So they don't have to grow up and think, I don't know how to charge for this. I don't know how to charge for that. Like all of this. So there's a huge like kind of like one brain is math, one brain is art. Not really. When you're talking about the value of your time, you don't always have to think about that. So that's where entrepreneurship comes from.
Right.
So any of the artwork that, or any of the art classes that I've done has always come down to entrepreneurship as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kids or adults. So right now I want to start up my art classes. I've had so many art classes now that I taught for so many years that I have kids that are already on the art institute, which would be amazing to like bring back and be like, cool, now you help me come and bring back that art class, you know, and kind of help me with those art classes, which is super fulfilling, right? That I've had students that come up to me and they're like, oh my God, I did my thesis on how you taught the art world. And I'm like, I'm going to cry. And I'm like, yes,
that's awesome.
Like, this is amazing. This is what I wanted. Like, I want you to learn from that, you know?
Right.
So that's what I want the community to learn is about the entrepreneurship part of art. So depending if you're just an artist or if you're commissioning an artwork, I want you to know what to expect. If you are a business owner and you have a wall and you want to commission an artist to paint on your wall, what to expect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to expect a fee just to design the wall.
Yeah.
You're gonna expect a fee of not just the materials. The materials are completely separate from the actual skill of them actually working on your wall.
Right.
Completely different. So they're like, they're not all together. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Absolutely. Like me, I take a picture of the wall, and depending on the surface of the wall too, if it's textured, we're probably gonna have to put some kind of plaster to it to
For sure. Yeah. Smooth it out.
Smooth it out.
Yeah.
So, or if it's like one of those train things that like have already like a natural texture to it, you're probably gonna need a spray artist to do that, not a brush artist, which I'm a brush artist. You know what I mean? So you're going to have to commission somebody to do brush for that kind of work.
Right.
So just depending and like educating the people of what to expect.
That's awesome.
As a commission is what I want to do. Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
I got a couple questions, things I wanted to ask you too here before we wrap this up, Vania, is, we always got these stationary questions that we ask our guests, right? One of them, of course, is our logo, Enterrupt KC, people, places, and things, right? What I want to ask you, since you've been here for so long, doing all these great things in this city of ours that we love so much, give us a place that you feel best represents Kansas City.
I feel a place that feels most represented in Kansas City. For me.
For you. What place you think represents?
It's got to be Argentine. It's got to be Argentine.
Shout out
Argentine. AGT, man, right?
It's got to be Argentine. I mean, come on. That's where I came to be. That's where I
Where'd you live in there? Around there?
What street?
Right behind Emerson Park.
That's right.
Yeah, Emerson Elementary. And so there was a library right there on Emerson Park.
Yep.
So that was my spot.
Yeah.
That's where I
did all your research.
Yes,
got
that's
all your
where
pictures.
I belonged. I didn't have a lot of friends when I got here.
Right by the fire station.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so a lot of the workers that worked in the library still remember me coming by, being all awkward and being shy and all this, and which is really cool because now they got a new library.
Yeah, they got a brand new one. Yeah.
And so I was one of their first artists to exhibit in their library, which is really cool because she remembered me.
Wow.
She remembered one of the librarians remembered me, and she followed me through Instagram and stuff like that. And she was like, "I want you to exhibit here." And then she was just made me cry. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you remember me? That's so cool." She's like, "Yeah, you never really said anything, but I remember you."
So you used to go there, do all your research, and now you got
exactly.
pieces of that.
That's
And
awesome.
so they used to have a basement in the Emerson Park library.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really where it was. That was for me. That was my world really until I got hired into the newspaper and all this and became the social person. That was my spot. But to be honest, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have much to talk about in my social atmosphere.
Shout out Argentine.
I
used to kick it in Argentine back in the day, man.
I was up and down Argentine, sideways.
Oh man, I was all over the place.
Absolutely.
Man. So sometimes in good terms, or sometimes not.
Listen, I used to pick up my godfather from the Eagle's Nest and be like,
shout out. I know the Eagle's Nest too.
Absolutely. Or what is it called? That one bar.
There was
Johnny's.
Johnny G's or Monchi's.
Oh my God, Monchi's.
Come on, man. Come on.
There was blue. Was it blue?
Had to pick up my had to pick up my grandpa from
Monchi's. Man. Shout out Monchi's, man.
Shout out
Monchi's, man. I hung out there so much. Super underage, super I'm just hanging out with my godfather. His name is Lalo Viles. Shout out to my grandpa.
Shout out.
My godfather, Lalo. Everybody knows him.
I was gonna ask you. I think I know who Lalo is.
Oh, 100%. You know who he is. If you know Argentine, you know who my godfather is for sure. Yeah.
Tell us you're from KC without telling us you're from KC.
From KC, I just gotta say Chiefs, I guess.
Chiefs.
Yeah.
You know when they say
that's
natural anthems.
That's cool. Hey man,
the natural anthem.
Super Bowl champions, man. We're gonna do a three-peat. Man, we're doing a three-peat.
They looking like it.
Yeah.
They looking like. You watch the Chiefs regularly?
Absolutely.
Well, good thing you're not a Tennessee fan then, right? Are you still a Tennessee fan?
You know what? I went to a
Don't
lot
break
of
out in the accent. Don't break.
Hey, come on. Only if you talk on that with that accent.
I didn't. I did go to a lot of games, but
Yeah.
I wasn't super involved, and I didn't really learn about football until I got to Kansas City.
Right.
My boyfriend kind of taught me about football and all that. I'm
You
not
hear that
into the
accent?
names.
I do. I do hear that accent
I
coming
love it.
Oh, here we
man.
go.
Yeah, it's good.
So I'm not really super into the name just because
Yeah.
I am an advocate of Native Americans and stuff like that. I'm not super into the name. And if you see any of the murals that I've ever done for the Chiefs, I never put the logo.
Okay.
That's just kind of an Easter egg for me that I always
Okay.
put Kansas City wherever the Chiefs
Yeah.
logo goes or the arrowhead goes. I always put Kansas City on it
Yeah.
just for respect of my ancestors and everything.
Sure.
But nobody ever really notices, which is really cool. Or when I get actually commissioned by Kansas City, I always switch it to KC instead of the arrowhead. But that's just me from my ancestors. and my
That's all
respect.
good. That's all good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all good.
I was gonna ask you though, Vania, murals. Is there one coming up that maybe you can talk about?
Yeah,
or
what's that?
anything
You
like
got a
that?
next
A piece that
project?
you're working on?
Oh my God. Well, the one I'm working on right now, which is really cool, it's not really a mural, but it's a canvas. Actually, it's not even a canvas piece. It is a commission piece, though, that is made out of wood. And it folds. It actually folds. This is for the Lung Society, which is a Lung Cancer Society awareness
Yeah.
program, and it's called the White Ribbon Program, which is for people to get screened for lung cancer. So it's more of awareness for the people that don't usually get screened.
Okay.
And so it'd be your average person that would just be
awesome.
like walk in.
We did an episode with a woman, Kristen, man. That's she sits on that panel, right?
That's
Is the heart
amazing.
of that
Board. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, look, we're about to wrap this up, Vanya, and it's been great talking to you.
Great.
It's been great.
This
I
has been
loved
awesome.
everything about it, and I guarantee you, hopefully, we'll be able to put you back in this seat again, and we'll have another conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience that we didn't cover? Something you want to share that maybe we didn't ask you?
I just want to invite people out to Monarca Art Space, Mas KC,
Yes,
to
come on
our
out.
building. I've worked really hard to get here to have our own gallery for our community.
Yeah.
I feel like I belong now, and
do.
that I want to invite the people in Kansas City that feel like they're not represented. I want to invite those artists, but also I want to invite that public to view those artists and to have a part of community here in the West Bottoms. We also have like a boutique right next to our gallery art, which is just an extension of our art, right? Which not all artists paint on either wood or canvas, right? Sometimes they do on T-shirts, on hats.
The hat. Like the
on,
hat.
There you go.
Yeah, on
Ep18 KC.
everywhere.
Ep18
Exactly.
KC.
Ep18 KC. So like they all have brands. They all have different
Right.
materials or where they are branding their own art from. So this is just an extension of our gallery.
Yeah.
But we also have spaces for artists to create. So my thesis is like they create in that space and they turn around and they sell it on the other side of the wall, which is our gallery.
Yeah.
And so it's just a one-stop shop for artistic people that are
That's awesome.
interested in
Come on
creating
down.
and like,
Come on down.
entrepreneurship is our number one theory here. in
Again,
this
what's your
space.
address here?
It's 1225 Union Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri, West Bottoms, right next to the ship.
Right next to the ship. So everybody come down, man.
we go.
Support
Thank you.
Mas KC, support Vania Soto.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get down here in the
Monarca,
West
man.
Bottoms. I think that does it for us on this episode. JL.
D-Rod, listen, man, if anything you like about this episode, please comment, man.
Yep.
Holler at Vanya, man, to
Holler.
get down here.
Holler at
If
Vanya.
you want to see some pieces, if you want to buy some pieces, if
right.
you got a commission piece you want, if you're interested in any kind of work, man, support
Incredible
Vanya.
If you're an
artists in the city.
artist, if you're an artist.
And if you're an artist, come on down here and drop some pieces off,
Yeah.
man. She's willing to help you out.
With that said, like, follow, share, subscribe,
Comment.
Enterrupt KC. All right. Peace, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.